Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today I wanted to talk about some new leaks, which may not be leaks at all, that mean almost certainly not, and a relic of Star Citizen's past, TheAgent. This is sort of random FUD, fear, uncertainty and doubt, and predictions that people have previously made that they said were from legit sources. So, who is TheAgent? TheAgent is an anonymous poster on the Something Awful forums that periodically posts supposed insider information about Star Citizen's development, saying they had connections to the company or friends that worked there, or at least that was the theory. They've made a lot of predictions over the year, and a huge amount of them have been entirely wrong. A lot of these leaks have just been not accurate at all. Some have been somewhat accurate, but a lot of it was they cast quite a wide net and were also talking about stuff that people expected or was already known and just sort of tacking extra bits onto that. What I'm saying here is that they don't appear to really have any insider information from what I can tell, and they may have previously known CIG staff, maybe, but now if they're receiving their information from a third party, it's almost certainly just randoms just sending in leaks. My mother could send in a leak and it would be treated as, well, I've got a source that tells me that there is a super capital class coming out that you can then purchase for $20 million. So if this is the case, why are we talking about it? Well, there does seem to be people talking about these leaks every time new ones are posted. Originally, they were given some level of, what if they're true, or respect to a degree, like, oh, why would he be posting this if it wasn't accurate? What if they are accurate? As far as I'm aware, now these are just seen as sort of random stabs in the dark. They aren't given any form of clout. But a lot of people, especially newer backers, would have never have heard about this. They wouldn't be aware of some of Star Citizen's past and would be confused by references or memes about it. My channel covers a huge range of Star Citizen news, topics, drama, and development, warts and all, and this is at the very least a trip down memory lane for me and a nod towards various Star Citizen conspiracy theories of old. But that's also not to say that Star Citizen has had a perfect development. The project is massive, ever expanding, and a monster of crowdfunding, with it repeatedly being delayed and Cloud Imperium being very, very bad with times and dates. These are things that can be sort of discussed and criticised, and probably should be. The open development of Star Citizen is great for it as sort of like a crowdfunding beast, but it's also a double-edged sword, as if Cloud Imperium don't show us a huge amount of development, or things get delayed, or they are incorrect with stuff, or they obscure certain parts of development, it looks really bad. What I am saying, though, is that, as far as I'm aware, TheAgent's leaks are 99% bullshit-through and not from CIG sources, or at least, if they are, they're not from the same sources that I have. A lot of them are just rehashing what's known or what people already think. I'd also like to say things like Cloud Imperium responded to internal leaks recently about the RSI Galaxy Cutter and the C8R Pisces that were announced and properly unveiled at the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, and obviously Cloud Imperium were disappointed that those things got leaked. If the agent leaks had been sort of accurate or actually from CIG sources, I would expect that Cloud Imperium would have locked them down and responded to them anyway. With that in mind, let's look at the latest leaks from TheAgent. Capital ship gameplay and design still being hashed out. Well, that's sort of true, right? We know that. We know that they're working on capital ships. We know that they're working on gameplay for all ships. We know that they're doing stuff with the resource management system, and they want to finish that off before putting capital ships in the game. Yeah, makes sense. Turbulent in charge of solving and inventing these gameplay systems. Well, they're definitely going to be at least involved, and I know Turbulent are doing a lot of stuff like that. Nothing set in concrete yet. Some ideas include better LODs, levels of detail on capital ships to reduce or eliminate frame rate issues, removal of extraneous areas to free up overhead, and massive reduction in player crew. So I know some of this is actually not too inaccurate. So they do want to obviously optimize capital ships, and they want server meshing and a variety of other optimizations in game to make capital ships possible, and reducing or making the LODs more optimized. That makes sense. Also, the reduction of player crew. I've talked about this a few times over the last year or so. It makes sense that Cloud Imperium will want to look at what is an optimal amount of players to run a ship without sort of like security forces running around and that sort of stuff. And when you look at like, oh, is it supposed to be 75 players for an Idris or 50 players? Well, you can probably actually run that down in 15, right? That makes sense. And if you've seen the latest interior concept of things like the Polaris, you can see that there's a bunk section which looks like maybe it's got 12 to 15 bunks for that ship down from 24, I think it was originally supposed to have. So I think a lot of that is relatively just simple deduction and just discussing stuff with a bit of an educated guess. Something interesting here, this reduction in player count aboard capital ships means that instead of 5 dozen players, the majority of crew space would be occupied by NPCs, bringing the player count in line with the 3-to-1 rule. Thought it was 9-to-1. Question mark. They're suggesting there that the 9-to-1 ratio of NPCs in the verse that we're supposed to sort of be seeing when we're flying around is now reduced to 3-to-1. That's a bit weird. Also, I do think that lots of player ships, like capital ships, will have NPCs running around as security, as engineers, and doing some of the bits that players won't want to do or want to automate. But we already know about AI blades, we already know about NPC crews. Keeping player headcounts to around 2 dozen or lower, with a sweet spot of around 15 players per capital ship. Now, that could be true for some capital ships, and actually sounds reasonable for the gameplay that Cloud Imperium are wanting to do. I don't really want a capital ship with 200 human players on. I don't want them flying around in a Javelin with over 50 on, really, unless those 50 players have got something to do on the ground. They're going to be doing some form of assault, so there's a load of Marines on board. But running a ship with that many players is going to be difficult and probably quite boring for a lot of those people that are just waiting there. Now, if you've got NPCs on your ship, yeah, that makes more sense, right? They're okay to wait. You've got to also remember that with these capital ships, they can have quite a lot of players on them or NPCs on them, but they're not always going to be active, those NPCs. They're going to be in shifts, they're going to be sleeping, and as part of the sort of simulation for the game, that's taken into account. This would allow multiple capital ships on a single server with a max target of 4 per server, and would be a departure from the 1 capital ship per server current design. That's a bit weird to say. I think that server meshing actually probably allows for quite a lot of capital ships per server, and maybe 4 capital ships in a single area. I suppose that's what they might mean by server, if you're talking about dynamic server meshing, maybe. I'm not sure if there is a current design for capital ships per server beyond as many as they can possibly fit in with the whatever optimized technology they have at the time. You see sort of quite a lot of capital ships with Xenothreat. You see at least 3 at the moment with the Xenothreat when that sort of is on. So I do think it's probably going to be a lot more than 4. NPCs would crew the more mundane or day-to-day operations of the ship, but would also include some combat roles such as turrets and boarding parties. These NPCs at tier 0 would not be able to be seen walking or doing tasks around the ship. So that's an interesting one. I've talked about this quite a while ago. There are going to be non-physicalized AI. You're not going to need to physicalize an AI if you can't see it. If it's sort of running part of your ship, you don't want to have all of these AI fully physicalized and then moving around. You're going to go, well, he's in engineering, operating this terminal. We don't need to render that. Instead, these tier 0 crewmen would just be names seen at specific consoles, expanding eventually to be fully interactable and seen on board. That's actually how it might be internally at the moment, I don't know. The lore team has written up over 100,000 backstories that could be mixed to produce unique histories for each NPC crewman. And maybe, I suppose you can have modular sort of lore parts for crew, and then their backgrounds could all be sort of procedurally generated effectively. Once a crewman has dedicated themselves to you and your fleet, their name, backstory, stats, and specialities are locked to you and only you. I don't have any information on that personally. I know that there's the potential for NPC stats and specialities. That's what they've talked about previously. And beyond that, them having their own unique names, I don't really know much more about how they want to do NPC crew. Interactions with every crewman can have a bevy of different options, including romance and quest paths, as deep as Mass Effect or any other BioWare game. I don't think that's accurate. I do think they want to be able to have you interacting with NPCs and have NPC crew, but I don't think they've got sort of crazy Mass Effect style crewmen and romance and quest paths for individual crew. I may be wrong, but that does not sound like what Cloud Imperium have talked about previously. And if they were planning to do that, I would expect them to have got some sort of demo in place and be showing it off, because it would generate quite a lot of funding. Expect the first rollout of NPCs and Idris capital ship gameplay no later than Q4 2026, with an internal target of 2025. Now, you find this a lot with a lot of these sort of agent predictions and that sort of stuff, or similar people saying they've got insider information. They will throw around an arbitrary date. I would say that Cloud Imperium probably don't know the dates of any of this stuff. It could be significantly sooner, and I would expect it sooner. But it could be later. Like, Star Citizen has sort of ever-changing priorities. Obviously, Squadron 42 is the main focus, which coincidentally is also the Squadron 42 Prelude / First Strike internal release. So, this is an interesting one. So, there was leaks about this Squadron 42 Prelude a while ago saying, Squadron 42 is going to have like this tiny little mini demo of the first couple of missions and to tide people over. There is no evidence at all for this, from what I can tell. However, I would really like a Star Citizen Squadron 42 demo. I think that would be absolutely amazing. I am, however, going to trust Cloud Imperium to develop the game that they want to with Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. I'm sort of just going to continue covering the Star Citizen and Squadron 42 news as it comes out. An absolute staggering amount of man-hours and monies has been spent on Squadron 42 cutscenes, with over $100 million spent and a majority of manpower dedicated to finishing them. Okay, I think a lot of the game is effectively interactive cutscenes, right? Isn't that a huge portion of the game? So these things that would be cutscenes in other games are actually you moving around the ship and interacting with them as you see them. While this includes filming, actors, and the studio, the biggest portion has been spent in post-production. Maybe. Post-production being the development of the game as well. A new Chinese firm has begun to help with these scenes, outsourced because Turbulent couldn't find enough butts to fill seats. We do know that Turbulent has opened a new studio in Lyon, in France. We do know that Cloud Imperium and Turbulent and the Frankfurt studio and all the other studios around the world are all hiring up devs at the moment. Is it possible they've outsourced work to more firms? It is possible. I haven't specifically heard anything about that though. So interestingly, they then say, I'm going to end this here because the next write-up is absolutely loving crazy and I am stripping out people's names, addresses and other identifying information because Jesus loving Christ, it's a lol for the ages, a little preview, and then goes on to sort of post a quote from someone that had been assumedly feeding TheAgent leaks, saying that he had gone up to, found a dev's address or someone's importance address from Cloud Imperium and knocked on their door and asked them some questions. And they told them everything they wanted to know about Star Citizen and their several businesses on the grey market and things like that, which I think is extremely unlikely that that happened. Though I can imagine someone sending those things in to TheAgent. Star Citizen leaks must get a huge amount of unverifiable, leaked information from people just making stuff up. But they somewhat vet the leaks there and try to go, look, these are leaks, these are from sources that we think are accurate. However, that doesn't appear to be the same with the sort of agents' sources here. They just appear to be randoms, just posting whatever they fancy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little look at some of the more random leaks and information out on Star Citizen, or misinformation on Star Citizen. I think I'd actually enjoy them a bit more if those posts were like saying, I reckon this is going to happen. Because some of the stuff that is talked about there, I think, yeah, that's worth talking about. Yeah, a lot of this stuff Cloud Imperium are working on in some way or another. And even if they're not working on it, it's worth talking about some of these things anyway, because typically they are hot topics or things that people want to know about. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm interested to know what you think. Do you want to see these sort of like false leaks or potentially incredibly inaccurate leaks covered and talked about, even if it's just sort of like more for entertainment? Do you think it sort of damages the conversation by having these anywhere? Do you think these sort of leaks can be accurate at times? Or do you think they actually point out some topics and areas that are sort of hot spots that Cloud Imperium need to address, or maybe questions that should be asked by backers? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below.
Ho ho ho! Merry Nordmas!
It's Santa!
No, Timmy, it's Father Nordmas. I'm legally distinct and spread NordVPN cheer. Here you go, little Tim. Have some discount on your next NordVPN purchase. Just what you wanted. Go to nordvpn.com/BoredGamer.
But Santa, we don't want a VPN.
I told you, Tim, it's Father Nordmas.
Every month we have a ship giveaway. For December, we are giving away the Mighty Drake Corsair Explorer with a Star Citizen game package and lifetime insurance. This no-nonsense Explorer can take you and 3 friends to the limits of adventure around the verse, and although more focused on exploration and expedition, it is a great multi-role mission runner too. Comment on any of my videos during December to be in for a chance of winning that. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Please don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the videos, leave comments, and if you feel so inclined, use the join button under my videos and give a little bit each month to help the channel. It really, really does help. Or you can even become a Patreon or donate. Check out all the links below. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great time in the verse.